It's raining, it's pouring, and we are processing. Hey, it's Panthers beat writer Mike Kay, joined by Alex Zutlow, and we just got pretty soaked at a training camp practice as we were recording on Tuesday, August 5th. Lathan held the ball ransom during a practice. We'll talk about him in a little bit, the rookie from Ohio State. Plus, we will get into a great conversation with Kay Cabot. We're going to talk about the quarterback outlook for the Browns, which, if you've been paying attention, yike-a-doodle-doos. Plus, we'll also ask the newly minted Bill Nunn Jr. Award winner and Hall of Famer about the first-round pick Mason Graham, who seemed to be on the Panthers' radar before he was selected in the top 5 by the Cleveland Browns. But that is coming up later. What's coming up now is Alex probably giggling and saying how he's doing. How you doing, Alex? Are you staying warm?
I'm doing great. Yeah, no, not staying dry. For those who were paying attention to social media, yeah, there's literally a flash flood warning in Charlotte. The entire Panthers reporting corps was out there with umbrellas outside of Mike Kay. Mike was the only one who didn't bring an umbrella to practice today.
I'm old school.
And no, he's not old school. He just took my umbrella. That's how that happened.
For half the practice.
But I'm feeling good. The no for
then. Alex, every time we try not weather, they're not going to talk about weather. We end up talking about weather. This time, it's not actually our fault. So, critics of the weather talk.
Well, it was an important character. It was an important character in Tuesday's practice. I mean, it looked like for a moment that during 7-on-7 and 11 drills, there was going to be no completions because it was pouring down. This impacted Ryan Fitzgerald's day from the kicking competition perspective. He only went 1 of 5. I mean, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I mean, I think it's justifiable why we bring it up. But anyway, I'm doing good. So yeah.
You know what's also doing well? The Superman documentary. You can catch it right here on the Charlotte Observer YouTube page. But if you want to be all Tom Cruise with it, guess what? You've got another opportunity, well, actually 2 opportunities to see the film live at an actual movie theater. The Independent Picture House is now selling tickets for Sunday, August 17th and Sunday, August 24th at 1 p.m. Those showings will be of the documentary, and then a recording of the panel that featured Luke Kuechly, J.J. Jansen, Josh Norman, and Ron Rivera. Oh, and Scott Fowler and Thaden James were there, too. So make sure you check that out. The Independent Picture House, Sunday, August 7th and 24th at 1 p.m. Nice little matinee as you get ready for the 2025 Panthers season. But speaking of the 2025 Panthers season, gotta tell you, I'm thinking a lot about the 2024 offseason during training camp because, man, the importance of the second-year players in this particular roster and depth chart is immense, okay? You've got Xavier Legette. Yeah, Xavier Legette's healthy and in a role that fits him as the Z receiver with T-Mac McMillan on the opposite side. You've got Shaw Smith-Wade, who is unquestionably the best defensive player of the pre-joint practice, training camp practices. He's been on fire since, OTAs. Trevin Wallace is now the big man on campus at inside linebacker. And then Jatavian Sanders is arguably the offensive player of the first 3 weeks of training camp. Alex, let's talk about this because this is how good teams operate. They get a huge jump from their draft classes in year 2, and everybody kind of ascends around them. Not only that, but they've paid for upgrades on the defensive line. They've paid for upgrades at safety. They've, reassured their cornerbacks that they're going to stick around for a while. They've paid for really expensive guards. They have 2 well-played tackles. All this stuff, but it all comes together when a draft class matures from year 1 to year 2. That was part of the reason why last year's team struggled so much early is that Chandler Zavala, Jonathan Mingo, DJ Johnson, even Bryce Young, all struggled to kind of find their footing. It feels like the 2024 draft class is not following suit. What are your big impressions from that group right now?
Just like you're saying, they're being really good. I know that they're not part. I know that this guy in particular is not part of the 2024 draft class, but in my mind, Mike Jackson is also kind of part of the second year Panthers group too, because they got him for essentially a flyer on trading away their 7th round pick for him to Seattle last year at the beginning of last year, and what a remarkable addition he's been as well. But yeah, so with that group is just wonderful. The guy that sticks out to me is Ja'Tavion Sanders. He's having the camp of his life. I know I've said that a couple times already, but even today in the rain, he had this out route that was like, it was almost like everyone else was on skates and he wasn't. And he made a catch away from his body with his hands while the skies were opening up. He also had a touchdown later in practice. It just feels like he has taken so much advantage of the opening that has been presented to him with Tommy Tremble out. And not to say that I didn't expect it, because I knew how talented he was. I saw how in shape he came to training camp, but I don't think anyone knew how proficient he'd be, at least in the passing game so far. And then there's Shaw Smith-Wade, your guy, who I'm sure you're going to talk about. Trevin Wallace has stepped up in the Josie Jewell role. Xavier Legette is doing his thing. I mean, this 2024 class, like you said, is doing its part. Mike Jackson, I also kind of consider in that role. Is there any? I mean, I kind of singled out JT Sanders. Is there anyone in particular that you think is making a massive jump, or is it just the class holistically?
Well, we did the stock watch story that came out Monday, and I mentioned JT and I mentioned Shaw. They're guys that are exceeding their draft slots and ascending. That's why I think what makes them so special. They're both day 3 picks. The JT was the 4th rounder. Shaw Smith-Wade was the 5th rounder. JT didn't block in college. Shaw Smith-Wade didn't play nickel in college. Guess what? They're being asked to do both at this level, and they're excelling. Now, JT Sanders lost like roughly 17 pounds after his rookie year. He looks more muscular. I actually think he's going to be pretty proficient as a blocker, even after he surprised last year with his blocking ability. Shaw Smith-Wade, I think, is going to surprise people with his versatility. I think he's going to be able to play a little bit outside. I think he's going to be able to move around a little. I wouldn't be shocked if they used him at safety a little bit. He is a guy that is so intelligent that it enhances his talent. Talent is one thing. Intelligence and talent is another. And I think that's what Shaw Smith-Wade has. Trevin Wallace has shown an uncanny ability, and he showed this in college, of being a phenomenal blitzer and understanding timing and space. And I think that's going to do him well now as he kind of has his feet wet, no pun intended, from the weather today, but he understands what his role is now. Let's talk about XL a little bit, though, because he's going to, there have been a lot of questions about his route running, his hands, his speed, all this and that. I mean, we saw it at FanFest. Like, he is elusive, and he can turn on the burners, and he can make you take bad angles in the secondary. He's a guy that I think really benefits when he is able to be a flanker and not face press coverage and kind of move around in space and run crossing routes. That dude is a crossing routes machine. And when he catches the ball in stride, good freaking luck. He's like a locomotive heading upfield. I think he complements Tetairoa McMillan very, very well. And I think if McMillan is able to show that he can bully corners early, which he's getting a lot of prep from bigger corners right now in J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson, and even to an extent Corey Thornton, I think that teams are going to have to double team McMillan pretty regularly, and that'll open up things underneath and across the field for Xavier Legette. Obviously, the 2nd round pick, Jonathan Brooks, is out for the year. That's a bummer. I have been impressed by Jaden Crumedy, last year's 6th round pick. He seems to kind of be ascending into a role a little bit. But yeah, man, if this team can get a huge step up from the majority of its 2024 draft class, they're going to be in a position to ascend, especially as the 2025 draft class looks like it's better than the rookie class before it. And so I think that's really something that I want to keep in mind. It's also something that I want to keep in mind as they take on the Browns in joint practice this week and the Texans next week. Is there a certain position, group, or player that you're really anxious to see face another team in practice?
Well, that guy would be Teteroa McMillan, just purely because it seems like, and Mike, maybe we can have a debate about this, but it seems like the Panthers have been very strategic and calculated as to who matches up with Teteroa all training camp.
I'd agree.
Initially, it was Mike Jackson, and we asked Dave Canales why, and he was like, "Oh, that's all Mike. Mike wants to go against the best." But it did seem, to your point, kind of beneficial that T-Mac was going up against these larger corners because he's 6'4", 219, really long and wiry, and is known for this to be like a 50-50 ball guy. So if he can get off the line effectively against Mike Jackson or JC Horn or whatever, then he could be really effective. Well, he started pretty slow in training camp, and then it seemed like they immediately matched him up with some smaller guys. Perhaps that's just what it seemed like. Later, he got matched up with Shamar Bartholomew, who's also having a wonderful camp, and Corey Thornton, who is this undrafted free agent, who I know we're going to talk about a little later, but who's really shined. So, and who has a legitimate chance of making the 53-man roster. So, and then Teteroa got a couple more catches, and he started getting some more confidence back, and blah, blah, blah. So, I'm curious to see how the team, or how Teteroa specifically responds when another team is like specifically game planning for him, and what the Browns do against him, just because they know McMillan's scout. They were a top 10. They were a team drafting in the top 10 last year. They know exactly who this guy is. So, this is going to be an early look for the number 8 overall pick as to like, okay, this team knows me really well. This is how they're going to guard me. And for the Panthers, this is a good time for Dave Canales to get an early look as to how to perhaps scheme McMillan open if required. So that's one guy I'm looking at. There are a couple guys on the defensive side. I mean, obviously, I'm interested to see how the outside linebacker group does against the Browns' offensive line. But on the offensive side, it's really I guess I'm really thinking about the rookies, Mike, because we kind of know what this 2024 draft class can do. Are you paying any special close attention to what Bryce Young does against the Browns? I mean, we talk about Bryce, and he had a really good joint practice against the Jets last year, but what did that ultimately yield? I mean, and then he had a really good showing against the Bills that one series in the preseason. What did that ultimately yield? Like 2 really bad regular season games. It's tough to discern exactly what you can learn from a quarterback in these practices, I guess, or maybe that was just an anomaly last year. But are you focusing closely to Bryce, or like how are you going to approach that whole thing?
No, I'm more focused on what's around him. I think, especially in this first practice, just because this Browns defense is pretty good. At corner, I think Denzel Ward's going to test some guys. I think Greg Newsome's another guy who's really interesting at corner. And they have Mason Graham and Myles Garrett. And I think like that's going to be a really good test for the tackle group for the center competition. I'm actually going to be paying attention. We didn't draw straws or anything, but we'll get this out of the way, because this is a Wednesday morning that you're going to hear this. But Alex will be focused on the offense versus the Browns defense. And I will be focused on the Panthers defense versus the Browns offense. I'm intrigued to see how this defense does, especially against the run. They have 3 all-pro level offensive linemen, Jack Conklin, Wyatt Teller, and Joel Bitonio. They have Diontae Johnson, obviously from formerly of the Panthers. They've got Jerry Jeudy, who's coming off his first Pro Bowl. They have David Njoku, the tight end. Like, they have some talent. And so I think, yes, the quarterback situation is clearly unenviable, but I'm interested to see how Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom handle inside linebacker duty, how the new defensive line holds up, even if Derek Brown doesn't practice. And, I want to kind of see what the situation is at safety because it seems pretty open-ended. And also, can Shaw Smith-Wade carry on his good stuff against a defense or an offense he's never seen before? But speaking of offenses that the Browns have never seen before, let's talk to Mary Kay Cabot about the Cleveland Browns and what they bring to town. And we are joined by newly minted Bill Nunn Jr. Award winner and, I consider her our representation in the Hall of Fame, Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, guys. How you doing?
We're here. We're excited to have you in Charlotte, obviously, as the Panthers and the Browns get ready to do joint practice, or at least we hope they don't get washed away. But entering, Wednesday's joint practice, you had some pretty big news that you just dropped as we're recording this on Tuesday. Shedeur Sanders, he's going to start on Friday. What does that mean for joint practice, and what does that mean for the preseason for the Browns?
Well, this is really, really big news for Cleveland, for anybody who is a Shedeur Sanders fan, and there are many, many of them out there. They are a very vocal group. They're very passionate about Shedeur. And so I know that they are all fired up for him to have this opportunity. The reason why he got this opportunity is because Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel are both nursing hamstrings right now. And Joe Flacco is 40 years old. They don't want Joe Flacco playing in this game if they can avoid it. And then they went ahead and signed Tyler Huntley, who was with the Browns last summer. But Tyler Huntley is just signing and getting his uniform and all of those kinds of things. So really, Shedeur has earned this opportunity as the next man up. It's a big deal because here is the truth of the matter. Shedeur Sanders has taken a total of 4 snaps against the Browns' first team defense, and he has taken 0 snaps with the Browns' first team offense. So I would expect that tomorrow in the joint practice, those will be his first snaps, throwing to Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku and Cedric Tillman, and being snapped the ball from Ethan Posich and being blocked by Jack Conklin and Joel Bitonio and all of those guys. So it's really going to be his first opportunity to do that. And then when he goes out in the game on Friday night, he'll have an opportunity to put it out there against live action. It's huge. This is a very big deal. Again, it would not have come if not for the injuries to these other guys. At least I think Dylan Gabriel probably would have started the game and Shedeur probably would have finished the game. But now this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, Mary Kay, we could talk about the Browns quarterback situation probably for another 30 minutes. And I imagine you've spent a lot of the offseason doing so. But wanted to look at another part of that Browns offense. Nick Chubb left this past offseason. What's the situation like at the running back position now that Nick Chubb's with the Texans?
Well, they thought they were in very, very good shape at the running back position when they went out and they drafted Quinshon Judkins in the 2nd round out of Ohio State. Then they came back and drafted Dylan Sampson in the 4th round out of Tennessee. And that was going to be their 1-2 combo, their formidable duo, and they were going to be ready to roll. They were going to go back to an AFC North type gritty running game. And now they don't have Quinshon because Quinshon is dealing with a domestic violence incident. So he is not with the team yet. I think he probably will be with the team at some point, maybe even in training camp, but he's not there yet. So you will be looking at in the joint practice and in the game, you will see some of Jerome Ford, their leading rusher from last year. You'll see Dylan Sampson. They've got a rookie, Amani Williams, and, and they've got that's pretty much basically it right now. They've got a couple of other young guys that you will see playing in the second half of the game. But it's not the running game they thought they would have at this point in training camp, and they're just trying to get by. But Dylan's done a really nice job, and I think Jerome has also had a nice camp.
Mary Kay, you've got a familiar face for Panthers fans in that wide receiver room, and Diontae Johnson. He started off pretty well here. There was no issue really, and then as it got going into the first month of the season, it just was very clear this wasn't working anymore. He got traded to the Ravens, got cut by the Ravens, went to the Texans, got cut by the Texans, got picked up by the Ravens again and didn't play again. But now, he has openly said that the Browns were the only team to make the call. What have you noticed about him so far, and what do he and Jerry Jeudy bring to this offense?
Well, I'll tell you what. When you watch a Pro Bowler practice, it's different. You guys know that. The Pro Bowlers just look more athletic. They look smoother in what they're doing. They look more polished when it's a receiver in their routes and things like that. And that's what you can see from Diontae Johnson. He is right up there in the route running realm with Jerry Jeudy, and Jerry's one of the best in the business. So if Diontae Johnson can kind of keep his head on straight and keep a great attitude and be coachable and be a good teammate and those kinds of things, then he's going to find a place on this football team, and I think he can make an impact. And so far, he seems willing to do that. It's his last chance in the NFL. With all of those different stops and all of those different goodbyes from everyone last year, I think he knows that he has to hold it together and do the right thing. I've seen him at practice with his two young sons. I mean, he's got a why. He's got two whys, two big, huge reasons to get it right this time. When he has his head in the game, he's a very, very good receiver. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing someone that can rival Jerry Jeudy in that route running department. And those two guys have actually developed a nice rapport. They're both from South Florida. Those guys speak a different language to each other. They just kind of finish each other's sentences with the culture down there. And so I really think that he can make a go of it here if he can accept his role, if he can not complain about things and go with the flow. I know for a fact that he really, really was doing well in Carolina and probably should have just stayed with it. He should have stuck with it and not tried to go somewhere else where he could win games and do all that kind of stuff, because he was actually playing well there. When you look at those stats, he had a couple of 100-yard games, I think, or at least he was close to a few of those. And so I think it was probably the best situation for him of all the ones that he was in last year. And let's see if he can kind of recreate some of that here.
Diontae Johnson is one of those sliding doors moments in Carolina Panthers lore, at least recent history. Another one of those guys ends up being on the Browns also, Mason Graham. The Panthers really liked him in the pre-draft process. Ultimately, the Cleveland Browns took him with y'all's top 5 pick, and the Panthers ended up with Teteroa McMillan, and that's how things are now. What I think there is a lot of interest in Mason Graham, though, in this Panthers fan base. What have you seen from the defensive lineman?
Well, Mason Graham has done a really nice job. He's getting a push up the middle. He hasn't gotten his hands on as many passes as maybe some of the other guys have, like Shelby Harris is doing a nice job in that regard. But he's getting that nice pressure up the middle, which is what the Browns really want. Now, what they ultimately want is for him to be paired inside with their second-round pick from last year, Mike Hall. When they have those two guys in the middle together, they are really looking at that as a scary and dangerous inside combo. So we'll see how that goes. And he will play tomorrow night. He will start the game. So we'll see if he can get some of that inside pressure, interior pressure on Bryce Young and what impact it has on the young quarterback. But so far, he's done a nice job. And I think that the Browns are really eager to see what he can do in real live action.
Very good. We just have a couple more for you. This is my last question. I know Alex has another one, but I know that they had a pretty notable cornerback injury with Martin Emerson going down. The Panthers have a lot of young wide receivers that are looking to prove themselves. What type of challenge does Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome do they possess really right now with that secondary.
Well, I'll tell you what, this could be a little bit of a challenge for the Browns secondary right now because, as you mentioned, they lost Martin Emerson for the season to the ruptured Achilles. Greg Newsome is struggling right now with a shoulder injury. He came down hard on his elbow and shoulder in practice, and he's not 100% right now. As far as Denzel Ward is concerned, I don't know if he's going to play in the game. I really don't know if he's going to play. If I'm the Browns, I'm probably sitting him out, and I'm probably sitting Myles Garrett out and letting those guys kind of gear up towards maybe a little bit of playing time in the third preseason game. But certainly he'll be out there during the practices. And I think Denzel has taken his game up to another level this season. I wasn't sure he could do it because he always plays at such an elite and high level as a 4-time Pro Bowler. But he's got another year and he's in it this summer. And yesterday I asked Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, about him, and he called him the best cornerback he's coached in 30 years. That is some very high praise from Jim Schwartz, who has coached some of the best in the business. So pretty cool for Denzel. And I think whoever goes against him, it might be a little bit of a long afternoon or a long evening. Then they've got some good young guys in Cam Mitchell and Miles Harden. Those guys can play either inside or outside. And I know it's going to be a good test for those guys.
Yeah. Mary Kay, again, thank you so much. I have one final question. It seems like this joint practice and then ultimately this preseason game is going to be a pretty even matchup. The Panthers are projected to have, I projected the Panthers to have 7 wins early on. Once the season schedule came out, Mike had them at 8 wins. Are the Browns expected to have that amount of wins? I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you for a projection this early, but how even do you expect this weekend to be?
Well, I think it should be pretty even depending on who's going to start and play and all those kinds of things. And in my mind, it always comes down to the quarterback and the quarterback play. And the Browns just don't have a full complement of quarterbacks right now. If Kenny and Dylan practice some, they will be probably only in 7-on-7s. So when you get to the 11-on-11s, you're going to be talking about Joe, Shedeur, and now Tyler Huntley, who's just arriving on the doorstep today. So in my mind, it really does come down a lot to the quarterback play. And I think it will be that way throughout the whole season for the Cleveland Browns. And then also turnovers and the turnover differential, because the Browns were horrible in that regard last year. They didn't take anything away and they gave it away all the time. And they were last in the NFL in turnover differential, and you're not going to win games that way. So in my mind, if they can just flip that script, they should be able to double their win total at least, and maybe get to 6 victories, 7 victories. But again, I think it will come down to the quarterback play.
And it always kind of seems to. I mean, no matter what the situation, Mary Kay, every situation you've got it covered, and we really appreciate you joining us today and all your work that you do on Cleveland.com. We're looking forward to spending the week with you here in Charlotte. Have a great one.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, you guys.
Well, that was delightful. Always enjoy talking to Mary Kay. She's one of the best in the business. There's no person that I can think of that is looking out for the next generation of football writers the way that she does. Obviously, as we mentioned, she won the Bill Nunn Jr. Award this year and, is going to be essentially enshrined in Canton for her writing, which is very well deserved. I thought she gave us a lot of detail there. We kind of got into it a little bit about the competition there, but I think this is a really good opportunity for undrafted rookies. And I think there are 2 guys in particular who have really, really come on. I think they're the 2 guys with the best shots of the undrafted guys of making the roster as of now heading into the preseason. And that is cornerback Corey Thornton, who we've talked about quite a bit, and then former South Carolina linebacker Bam Martin-Scott. You wrote a great detailed notebook on Tuesday. Sorry, I'm losing track of days. The raindrops keep falling on my head, and I woke up at 4 a.m. today, so I really need to get to bed. Sorry, that didn't completely rhyme, but I tried. And and Martin Scott is really trying too. I mean, he had that interception at FanFest, which I thought was probably the play of the day for the defense. Today, Tuesday, he had an interception basically lying down. It was called DPI, but honestly, I didn't see the pass interference clearly because it was going the opposite end. It might have been, but it was a really impressive catch that he made.
It was kind of like a jump ball. The Panthers were going away from us or away from the media, so and there's a line of players guarding us when they're going that way on that particular field. So I couldn't make out who he was guarding or who was the intended receiver. But it looked like a 50-50 ball, and when a linebacker goes up and makes that sort of play, it's pretty astonishing. I mean, he's kind of shown great ball skills all camp. He's pretty athletic, and fortunately for him, this is a linebacker group that kind of wouldn't mind the extra depth help. The Panthers obviously went out and got a linebacker this weekend, 2 days ago? Yeah, Chris Barnes, a veteran who played for the Packers and the Cardinals. I guess he's 27 years old, but so not exactly a veteran like an Adam Thielen type veteran, but he's been in the league for a while. And so they're clearly in the market for a linebacker, and they're clearly trying to build up that group. And I think he's doing as good a job as any to prove that he can be someone that the Panthers can rely on. These joint practices, like you said, Mike, are where undrafted free agents make their money. Damani Richardson essentially got the job after getting 2 pass breakups against Aaron Rodgers and then an interception against the backup quarterback for the Jets last year. And then on top of that, in the preseason game, also notched an interception. So, and then he ended up making the 53, got cut after some waiver wires came in on the Panthers, but then eventually made his way back to the practice squad and eventually started starting by the end of last year. And now he's like in contention for the starting role. This is like, if there's any time to do it, it's this week. You've been really high on Corey Thornton all camp. I personally haven't seen him flash as much as you have. What strikes you about him?
Well, what I would say too, I just wanted to add one more thing about Bam Martin Scott. He would not have gone undrafted if he wasn't already 25. Like, he just turned 25 last month, and so he's an old rookie. Otherwise, I think he definitely has the talent to be, he should have probably been a draft pick. Anyway, Corey Thornton, really great physical profile. He's not fast, but he is kind of a J.C. Horn-esque corner where he's long and lengthy and physical. Wow. And he's not gunning for the ball. He wants to stop his man, whether that's through a pass breakup or immediately after the catch. And honestly, I think some corners just get so caught up in the Asante Samuel like jumping routes that you miss out on some of the technique and the, ability to kind of not bend or break. And I think that's something Thornton has in him. He's obviously not as talented as JC, but I could see him being a long-term backup outside corner for this team. He's got great size. The team clearly likes him. If they cut down the Sade, I would almost, guarantee that he was part of the top 5 corners on their group, whether they kept 5 corners or not. And, I think he's a guy that really can, if he shows up in the preseason, I think he's gonna make this roster. And I think Van Martin Scott's the same way. Picking up Chris Barnes, I think, is more about Claude Cherilus and John Radigan than it is about Bam Martin Scott, if that makes sense. So with that said, Bam, let's get to the outro, Alex, because I think we've got a pretty good show heading into Browns joint practices in the preseason.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike Kay and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.